Welcome, everybody, to Mom Street USA. My name is Kate, a.k.a. the Disney Cicerone, and joining me, as always, is Jackie, a.k.a. Wish's Mama. On this episode of Mom Street USA, we'll be talking about the best ADRs, or advanced dining reservations, in downtown Disney and Disney Springs. So we'll be headed to Walt Disney World first, and then we'll hop over to Disneyland. And we're specifically talking about the best dining reservations you can make for your family. So this is not necessarily like the best ones overall, although a lot of them do have really great food. But these are ones that you would want to visit with your entire family, maybe things for all ages. Jackie, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. This was really interesting. I'm kind of glad that we paired these two together because, we're completely outside of the parks when it comes to these locations. And it was a lot of research because as you will hear us mention, we have not eaten at a lot of these places. I don't usually spend a ton of time at Disney Springs, and I don't think Kate really does either. But there we have a few that maybe we have eaten at, and we did have some of our community on the Discord chime in and give us some opinions, so we'll share those with you guys as we go. But it was a lot. It was a lot too. Like Disney Springs had a lot. Like it was so like Epcot level. There.
Yeah.
So
it's hard to decide. Yeah. Like, which ones are the best ones. And we did our best to kind of pick and choose, and that we might have left a few of your favorites out. So if that's the case, feel free to shout at us and be like, hey, this is our favorite.
Yes.
And we'll make sure to share that with our community. But we're really excited for this one. I think it's interesting that I learned a few new places that I actually want to try that I've never even considered going to before. And I think that was the benefit of really digging in deep to both downtown Disney and Disney Springs. Because I also don't spend a lot of time there. Downtown Disney a little bit more because it's so close to the parks.
Right.
But Disney Springs is like a trek.
Yeah. Oh, you have to intentionally go there. It's not like downtown Disney where you're just walking to the parks potentially and going through the area. So yeah, it's completely different. And I do want to disclaim, like we have talked about for every episode, we are really just comparing kind of lunch and dinner because that's the easiest across the board to compare, especially with these restaurants. A lot of these restaurants in these areas don't have a true breakfast offering. We are not talking about any character meals. We are just talking about your kind of standard ADRs. And if you want character meal information, episode 43 of Mom Street USA, we talked all about character dining, so you can find that information there. And like I mentioned, Kate and I have not eaten at a lot of these places, so we're really basing this off of price, kind of menu option, atmosphere, experience, location, those types of things. So that's what we're giving to you.
Yeah, anything that I have not eaten at least for Disneyland, I did a lot of the Disneyland research for this. Anything that I've not eaten at, I did do a lot of looking up reviews and seeing what other people are saying about it. And, you always have like the glowing reviews and the really, really bad reviews. And I kind of try to look at the ones that are kind of in the middle. Like, like what is the majority of people saying? Because there's always people that maybe just had a really bad experience with a server or something like that,
Right.
So that disclaimer. We have not been to all these restaurants, but we have tried to give you the best information possible. And we also have our live audience joining us that will chime in here and there with their experiences of what they enjoyed with their families.
Yeah, for sure. So I think we're going to start by wrapping up the Disney World side of things. So if you missed our first two episodes, we already covered all 4 parks and their resort areas for Disney World. So now we are going to Disney Springs to wrap up Florida before we hop over to California. So the first one that we're going to talk about at Disney Springs is CityWorks Eatery and Pour House. They do have lunch and dinner options there. And I will just mention as well, we're not really going to talk much about like location of some of these, but do keep in mind that Disney Springs especially is a very large area. So you're definitely going to want to take a look at a map and figure out where you're going if you decide to book one of these, because some of them are not close. Some of them are like a 20-minute walk from where the buses drop you off. Some of them are super close. So just keep that in mind.
Yes.
As far as the kids menu here at CityWorks, here we go. They have an interesting, I will mention before I jump into the full menu, they have a bacon and eggs brunch option from 10 to 3 on weekends, which I thought was really interesting because they do have some brunch kind of serving here. But their standard menu has 6 options. They've got pizza, mac and cheese, grilled cheese, mini cheeseburgers, a chicken sandwich, and chicken tenders. And they are all $12 for every entree, including the bacon and eggs for their brunch option as well.
I was also looking up, food for adults because, there's usually adults that are going. And I saw lots of things that are like tacos and things like that on this menu that did look really good. I definitely get a lot of like sports bar vibes from this place. So that's, if you're into that, if you want to watch the game while you enjoy some food, there's an awful lot of like big, huge, giant TV screens everywhere in this.
Right. Which could be good or bad, as you may have heard us talk about with our Hollywood Studios episode when we talked about sci-fi there. We talked about those screens and maybe or maybe not the good atmosphere to have your kiddos. My kiddos would be very distracted by the TVs. So you got to kind of pick and choose with that.
Yeah. And Elliot and I just kind of both dislike places to have sports on. We're just not sports people. So I would not gravitate towards this. But there's a lot of people that would, especially if they want to watch the game or whatever. And some people who prefer their kids to maybe have something to look at while they're eating, and give them a little bit more of a peaceful meal in that way. So, that's we'll just give you the option. It's there.
Yes. And I will say that honestly, on Disney property, there are not a ton of these sports bar type places. I have been down at Disney World and wanted to watch various sporting events and been down there, and it's been a challenge to find places. So this is one that you can, especially if it's a big game or whatever, you can pretty much count on them having it on one way or another.
Yeah. So this is that option for those of you who like the sports. This is your option in Disney Springs is head there with your family, and they do have pretty good options for kids. That being said, I feel like we should keep moving because there's so many of these. Yes. Do you have anything else you want to say about that one before we move on?
No, and honestly, a lot of these we probably don't have a ton of commentary when it comes to them because, like we mentioned, we haven't eaten at a ton of them, but we'll try to give you at least a little bit for you to go off of.
Yes. So that being said, let's move on to Paddlefish, which actually has quite a few kids options. I was surprised when I was doing some research on this place, and it's on like what looks like a steamboat if you go to it, which is actually really fun too for kids.
Super fun.
But it looks like it's on a boat. And they have 11 kids meal options, including filet skewers, grilled chicken, chicken tenders, some linguine with a choice of meat there, hot dog, cheeseburger, peel and eat shrimp, crispy shrimp, and fish of the day. Definitely leans a little bit more towards seafood for that. But the prices are from about $10 to $17 for kids. And then there's also last October, they did a kids eat free deal for October, Monday through Thursday. So I don't know if they'll do that again in the future, but that is something it's worth looking up when you're going to be there and see if they're having that deal going on, because that's a pretty great deal.
Yeah, for sure. And it is interesting because the price range on this menu is a little bit more significant than what we see on some of the other ones. So pricing wise, it may really just depend on what your kiddos are going to eat if you're looking at your budget and trying to figure that out, because like the filet skewers are $17, but the plain pasta, the plain linguine with just Parmesan or marinara is $8. So there's quite a bit of difference there, especially if you've got multiple kids, so those things are something to keep in mind when you're looking at that. But that's nice that they have like it's probably you get one kid's entree free with a purchase of like an adult.
Probably. Yeah, that's usually how that goes.
Yeah.
And I would say, I feel like this is also the place that had like they had a kids like shrimp boil. So it was like a kid sized shrimp boil. So the kids, or was that with the other one? I'm getting them confused now.
I don't know. Too many options.
I feel like it was, though. I feel like it was this one because they have a whole bunch for adults.
The peel and eat shrimp option on there looks a lot like it because it's served with like a corn on the cob and red potatoes. It feels like, yep, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It feels very much like a shrimp boil would. So yeah, that's probably what you're looking at. And that's $16. So, I mean,
yeah, it's not cheap, but it's a fun experience if your kid has never been to a fish boil before, which like my kids wouldn't even know what that is. So,
and like I grew up going to the beach and getting seafood. So like, that's just like, yeah, like my kids eat shrimp. Like it's, so that's like a normal thing.
What beach do you go to
Not
Where you
in
live.
Ohio.
It's like, you have beaches in Ohio?
No, I mean, yes, along the lake and Lake Erie, but they're not like the beaches that you would think.
I was gonna say.
No, we at least once a year would go down to the Hilton Head area. So I have spent a lot of time down there. My grandparents on my dad's side live down in that area. So I grew up going down there multiple times a year usually. So I learned to peel shrimp when I was like 7.
Yeah, that's like Elliot grew up in Baltimore. So, cracking crab is what they do there. Yeah. And so I had to learn how to do that when I married into the family. And now my kids know how to do it too. And they think it's super gross, but they do it anyway because that's what you do. Because it is gross.
That is not something that we do. We do like the clams and mussels and shrimp and that kind of stuff. Crab is not necessarily.
Crab is a whole another ball game. You have to know what you're doing or you eat the wrong thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you. I will not take the risk of that. I will eat my crabs in like a crab cake because it's already done.
That's fair. That's fair. I do like crab cakes. Well, but the weirdest ones are the soft shell crabs. Have you seen those? And they just like fry the whole crab and you put it in a sandwich and you're eating it like every part of it. You're just eating it all.
Nope. No, thank you. I will pass. As much as I like crab, I don't need to see it look that way. Shall we move on to our next choice? Okay, let's talk about Splitsville. And you will hear this name come up again a little bit later in our episode when we talk about the Splitsville location at Downtown Disney. Spoiler alert, we're going to talk about it both places.
They're not the same.
They are not the same. They are very similar, but not the same. The menus, I assume, are probably fairly identical, but we'll find out whenever we get there. Stay tuned. Splitsville does have lunch and dinner options. Their kids menu is fairly standard. They've got 6 options. And the really cool thing is it's a bowling alley. Like you can eat. So there's a couple different kinds of tables that they have here. You can do tables that are literally with the bowling alleys. Like you can reserve the lanes and the table that goes with it and be served there, or they have like standard, more like just regular restaurant seating. So their kids meal options, they have 6 options. They have a burger, hot dog, cheese pizza, chicken tenders, a grilled cheese sandwich, and mac and cheese. They are all $10 for their entrees. I will say this is literally one of the only places that is an ADR at Disney Springs that we have eaten. And their portions for the kids' meals were huge.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah, like my daughter got the mac and cheese, and it was like a full pasta bowl full of delicious mac and cheese that like we helped her eat, and we still didn't finish it.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's great though.
Yes,
good value for the money.
Yes, and my husband liked that they had some different beverages on tap and things like that here, because they do have like a full bar in their one area. So it's really interesting the way that they've melded together the bowling alley feel with the restaurant feel.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Their vibes here are very much like retro, mid-century, modern, like very almost like kitschy kind of 1950s retro, which is, and then it's different in Disneyland, which we'll see when we get there. So they're not the same decor. They're very different in that way. But
and one other thing that I will mention for the adult menu, and Heather mentioned it over here, is they have a ton of sushi, and I have heard that their sushi is really good here. So
Splitsville,
yes, which is weird. Just such an interesting thing. But they've got a fairly extensive sushi menu. So if that's something you're interested in that you want, and I think that might have been why we ended up here, because my husband loves sushi and none of the rest of us will eat it.
You have options.
And I knew they had pizza and mac and cheese, which are my kids' favorites. And I think I got a chicken sandwich that was really good. So like, it was good food and it was a fun atmosphere. My kids loved that they got to sit at like the high top table and, those types of little random things. But yeah, they do have a fairly extensive sushi menu.
Did you bowl?
We did not, because we went almost 3 years ago. So my kids were little, and I was like,
yeah, they're just like putting up the bumpers and pushing the ball.
Right.
So.
I was like, we're
not
we're
worth
not
the
there
cost.
yet.
Yeah.
And they were when we went, they actually were doing a bunch of construction and like renovations and stuff. So I don't think they had all of their lanes open. And they had asked us if we wanted, when you check in, they ask you like, do you want to be at do you want to do a lane or not? Or, we were like, no, we'll pass on this route.
We'll watch the ambiance of the pins.
Well, and where we and where we sat, we could hear the bowling alleys, but we couldn't see them where we ended up sitting. So
just sound ambiance, not visual ambiance.
But yeah, we had a really good experience there. So I would recommend it. It's not going to be, the top tier, amazing, delicious food, but it was really good for what we paid, and the prices were good. And like I said, the portions were huge. So
I think it would be really fun for like a day when you're maybe going to fly out in the evening or something, and you're just looking for an activity to do. If you're not, you don't feel like seeing a movie, or you don't have a time to see the movie, you could bowl for a little bit. I think that would be fun.
True. Yeah. And I think when my kids are older, that would be something we would do. But like, they have no interest. Kids. They have no interest in bowling even now.
Yeah.
They would push it maybe once or twice and be like, okay, what are we doing now? It's like, no, we're bowling.
I'd have so much anxiety about my kids getting injured and then not being able to travel back home. Like, that's where I'm at as a mom.
Drop the ball on their toe or something.
Like, sprain their wrists trying to throw it. I don't know. Anyway. Do we have anything else about Splitsville? Should we move on?
No, I think we're good to move on.
Okay. So the next up is Terralina Crafted Italian. We have 12 kids meals options, so quite a lot. And, it's Italian food. So that's usually, most picky kids could usually find something at Italian restaurants that they could eat, even if it's like pasta with nothing on it. You can get spaghetti 3 ways, mac and cheese, cheeseburger, chicken fingers, hot dog, grilled chicken, grilled fish, fried ravioli, cheese, or pepperoni pizza. And the prices are $8 to $13. So I don't have a lot of things to say about this because I don't know that much about it. So do you have anything you want to share?
No, just more so that, it's a really good, solid Italian option with a really nice menu for a lot of different things when it comes to Italian. So I figured it was one, and the prices were good. Italian food is fairly reasonably priced for the majority of what we've been seeing at the Disney, ADRs that we've talked about. So paying anywhere from $8 to $13, I feel like for a good size Italian meal is pretty reasonable.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. I did make myself a reservation, not this one, but at Tony's Town Square.
Did you?
Yeah, because I've never eaten there.
Oh, you're going to try it? I'm excited.
Yeah. So I'm going to eat. I'll buy me onesie and try it out. And I'll report back how it was, because I've heard for years it was not good.
Right.
And now I'm hearing reports that it's actually really good now. So I was like,
and we talked about that in our Magic Kingdom episode. So we'll have to hear what you have to say about it.
That's one of my new things this trip is I'm going to try a new restaurant.
As far as Terralina goes, again, just a really solid Italian option if that's something that you're looking for when you're at Disney Springs. And I will mention some of these restaurants at Disney Springs are really easy to get ADRs for, and some of them are not. Some place like Splitsville has a ton of seating and are fairly easy to get ADRs. I don't know for sure about Terralina. I anticipate it's probably a fairly easy one to get because there are so many options at Disney Springs. There's a lot of that gets spread out, you know what I mean, when people are making ADRs for there. So that is one nice thing. If you are going to be there, chances are good you could find like a same day reservation if you're walking around and decide you want to eat there.
Yeah. I honestly, I always feel so overwhelmed by the amount of restaurants there.
Yes.
Like sometimes I don't go there just because it's like I get anxiety about having to pick.
Yeah.
So
I've had friends ask me for recommendations for like the day that they land, they want to go eat dinner at Disney Springs. And I'm like, please hold. And then I ask our good friend tour guide Barbie because she knows all there is to know. And I'm like, hey, what do you recommend? Because I've got nothing.
Yeah. No, I know a couple of like quick service places, but this is really great to dig into these, table service ones for those who want to make reservations. That being said, should we move on to the Boathouse, which is up next?
Yes.
So this one is, there are 5 kids meal options here. There's salmon, burger, popcorn, shrimp, chicken tenders, and mac and cheese. The prices are about $12 to $13, which is kind of like what we're seeing is anywhere from 10 to 14-ish seems to be the standard here. It's really interesting because I saw a lot of really good reviews that kids just love this place.
Yeah.
That because they can see the cars that go out into the water.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what they're called.
The amphicars. Yep, amphicars. They're so fun.
Yeah, so they can see them kind of like launch, even if you're not getting in one, which they can be a little bit spendy. You can at least see people go in them, and it's fun to watch the cars drive in the water. I think it's really fun for kids.
Yeah, I think I looked it up because I was curious when I was thinking about the amphicars. It's like $125 for
more shekels than I had. That's all I know. When I looked it up, I was like, oh,
yep. Nope. I can't remember if it's a half hour or 45 minutes, and you can fit up to 4 people in the car. So like if you
get like
you divide it out,
you get like a discount, I think, if you eat at the restaurant, from what I hear.
Maybe
there's something like $50 off or something. I don't know exactly what it is, so don't quote me on that.
I do want to do those amphicars someday, though. I'm going to wait till my kids are bigger and are not going to like want to be sitting like up on their knees to look at everything, because that gives me a lot of anxiety. Like, I need you to be seated down, please.
Yeah, they're really cute though. They're like little retro convertibles, and then they go out into the water, which is really fun. So, and then apparently, at least in the past, I know in this restaurant they have had like little cardboard boxes that look like the amphicars for the kids' meals to come in, which is so like
cute.
Such an extra. I don't know if they still do that, so don't promise your kids anything and then get there and be sad.
And don't blame Kate if that happens.
But it looks like a really, really fun place for kids. And the food looks really amazing too for adults as well. As it's just a solid option for everybody all around.
Yeah, and for such a fun experience, you're still paying the same amount that you would pay to go to any of these other restaurants like we've talked about. So like, why not, Now,
right.
That one is probably a little bit more difficult to get a reservation at, because some of these ones that have the more elaborate atmospheres and things like that, you're more prone to see that. But, do your best at your when your window opens up to grab it, and hopefully you'll be good to go.
But definitely a solid one for kids. Do you want to talk about the next one?
Yes. So we are going to also talk about now Wolfgang Puck Bar and Grill as another option that is good for families if you are doing ADRs at Disney Springs. They do lunch and dinner. They have a fairly decent options for their kids menu. And they've got cheeseburger, chicken breast, pepperoni pizza, cheese pizza, crispy chicken strips, spaghetti, and margarita pizza. So a few different options that we don't always see on kids menus. They do have gelato on the kids menu too, which I thought was so fun. They have like a little $6 cup of gelato or sorbet if you choose to do that on their menu as well. So definitely, it's one of those things where it's a well-known name, and we've heard good things, and they have a good kids menu, so it's one of those like that makes sense.
Yeah, it would be like the first place I would book with my kids for this one, but it's like a solid option if there's not a lot of reservations open and you're like debating about things. Like this one is a solid option because there's a lot of choices for kids. I would say the atmosphere is like okay. I don't think it's like the best for kids, and I think that's like it's just acceptable for children. But it's really pretty, so for adults will love it. But I would say it's not particularly fun. It's just a nice restaurant.
Yeah.
So
yes. So depending on your children, if they need more than just a nice restaurant and more than just food, if they need to be entertained by what's around them, maybe not this one. Maybe more Boathouse and less Wolfgang Puck.
Yes. All right. So let's talk about one that was a favorite by some of our good friends here for Mom Street USA, and that is Chef Art Smith's Homecoming. And I have heard so many good things about this one. It serves Southern cooking with and has a very extensive menu as well. And for that reason, it's also harder to get reservations at this spot, unfortunately, because of that. But the kids menu is everything is $10 on the kids menu. They have fish sticks, cheeseburger, fried chicken tenders, fried chicken sandwich. Basically, you're looking for like Southern food, fried chicken. And do you have a couple of the things that our friends said over there on Discord?
Yeah, so we had put on the Discord channel that we were looking for opinions, and our friend Kathy B said that they loved Chef Arts as one of their places that they went. And our friend Blair said, second vote for Chef Arts in Disney Springs. My family, including my picky 2-year-old son, loved it. So we definitely have some of our lovely Mom Street community that sings the praises of this particular option for Disney Springs.
I'm not going to lie, it looks amazing.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to try this one. I just don't get to Disney Springs very often.
Right. It's so hard. Again, like we said, unless you purposefully are planning to have a full day there, it's so hard, especially when it comes to ADRs. Like, again, when you're flying in, maybe is a good place to do like a dinner if you land in, mid-afternoon, that type of thing. But overall, it can be really tricky to find enough time to go and do, and let alone go, but then also do a sit-down restaurant while you're there.
It's always the buses. The buses get me. Yeah. The buses take forever to and from. Like, getting to Disney Springs isn't that bad, but getting back from Disney Springs will take forever. So if you do this on the travel day and you decide to go to Disney Springs, make sure you budget extra time to get back if you're taking Disney buses, or plan to take like a Lyft, Uber situation, minivan, something else besides the bus, because those buses just don't come as often as they do to the theme parks. And they already take a while to come to the theme parks. So,
right.
Just saying.
Right. The other thing I will mention that I know for Chef Artsmiths is they do have like a walk-up area. If you have older kids or if it's adults, they do like have like bar seating and stuff for walk-up area there too. So if you want a reservation there, but you haven't, like, you can't get an ADR, go and see what their walk-up wait looks like when you get there, because you may be able to find room with that.
Yeah, that's a smart idea. Maybe that's how I'll end up eventually eating there.
And honestly, I only know that because our good friend Kirk at Walrus Carp has done it before on his live streams on TikTok, and I've witnessed this happen. So that's really...
You mean he didn't plan ahead?
Shocker. We love our friend Kirk.
He's not a planner.
Nope, it's fine. Not at all. He is the exact opposite of Kate and I.
Yeah.
Yes. So
but he does know good food. I will say that.
Yes, very true. And he has, everything that I've seen him try here, he has enjoyed from what I can recall. So again, a good option. He also doesn't go to Disney Springs very often because it takes forever to get there. It's a hike to get out there. Yeah. And it can be really, really busy if you don't time it right. That's the other thing about Disney Springs is in the evenings, it gets really, really busy.
Very congested. Yeah, because people don't have to have a park ticket to get into it.
Right.
So everybody can go.
Yes.
So shall we move on to our next one?
Yes, this one is Kate's pick. Let's see what Kate has to suggest.
For families. This is one that my husband and I have gone to multiple times when we have gone to Disney Springs, and because it reminds us of where we used to live. This is Raglan Road, which is the Irish restaurant, Irish pub kind of restaurant that you can find there. And I will say, having lived in Ireland, it does look like an Irish pub on the inside a lot. It's very, very similar to what you would see in Ireland. Right down to the live entertainment. Although I'll tell you, in Irish pubs, they don't have lighting like this, and they definitely don't stand on a stage in the middle of the room and play. Like that.
No, they like sit in the corner, right?
They do, yeah. For a session, they'll everybody will sit. So the Irish music session, I won't go into it too much, but it is like, it's a thing. Irish music session culture is a whole thing. People have written books on it and the etiquette and everything for it. But usually what you have is kind of a group of like your 2 or 3 maybe musicians that kind of sit together, and then everybody will kind of bring in their instruments that are just from like outside, and they'll all kind of sit in this giant concentric circle around the pub. Everybody will have a drink and everybody will play tunes because everybody knows these tunes. And if you don't know the tune, you kind of sit there and like listen and learn the tune. So you don't try to play if you don't know it. And also there's an etiquette to it that if like they're really great players and you're a beginner, you just sit and listen. You don't play. not because they don't want you to, but because that's just like etiquette. So anyway, sorry, a little like side note of
I love it.
etiquette.
It's so fun.
So I've learned a lot about that because my husband's played a lot of gigs, sessions in Irish pubs, both in Ireland and also in the United States. So so this is not exactly authentic to that. And we'll be the first ones to say like that's not. But the entertainment is so fun for kids because they not only have live Irish music, they also have Irish step dancing. So you can see that you can watch the dancers as well and get a little taste of culture, you know, as you're eating. Yeah. And I will say that their menu is way better than food in Ireland. But they do have like fish and chips and burgers, bangers and mash, chicken, steak, salmon, sandwiches. They have a pretty extensive menu compared to what you would find in a pub in Ireland. And their kids menu is about $9 to $12. They've got chicken, grilled or fried, fish and chips, and mac and cheese. But again, they also have all those other things that you could get as starters and stuff to share. So I feel like this is a really solid option for both good food and also entertainment that's not just watching a TV. So,
right. Yeah. Well, and
know.
I think there's such a huge difference in kids experiencing live entertainment. And there's nothing wrong with screens and TVs and all of that.
No, that was definitely not my point.
No, not what we're trying to say at all. But there's just something so special and unique about going to a restaurant and seeing and having live entertainment there.
Live music.
Yeah.
I'm all about live music. And how often do your kids get to dine with live music?
Right.
You know?
Right.
Very, very. So it's such a unique experience in that way. And I think the atmosphere is just really, really fun as well. So big fan of Raglan Road, especially with kids. And it's loud in there anyway because it's a pub. So, you know, if you have people who have sensory, then they might not like the loud music, loud stuff. So, but it's also like you're not going to worry about your kids like crying and ruining somebody's meal. So
hopefully they're not crying, but you know.
Hopefully they're not crying, but kids cry at the end of the day, especially when they're tired. Sometimes they have meltdowns.
They're hangry, you know, it is what it is.
We just, you know, accept it. That is what comes with the territory of having children. Sometimes they're going to cry.
Right. So true. Well, let's, so that kind of is our main list of restaurants that we recommend for Disney Springs and that area. We do have 2 honorable mentions that we just want to kind of throw here at the end. Speaking of loud kind of environments, this next one is T-Rex. And this one has been discussed quite a bit on our Discord. And the reason that I kind of put it, and I'll be honest, this was me, I put it as an honorable mention on our list, was because the atmosphere, if that is something that your kiddos are into, is super, super cool. Like being in there with all of the dinosaurs and everything. The food, not the best. They do have a good size menu. And I don't think I don't know. It's hard. I've heard some people say they really enjoyed it. I've heard a lot of people say that the food was not good. So it depends on if you're willing to risk it. I'll be quite honest.
Rainforest Cafe, but with dinosaurs.
And it's owned by Rainforest Cafe, and the menu is identical to Rainforest Cafe.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind as well. If you're planning to do one or the other, their menus are literally identical. So just keep that in mind. As far as options on your kids menu, they do have, like I said, a decent sized kids menu. They've got grilled chicken, they've got fish, they've got corn dogs, they've got pasta that can be Alfredo or marinara. They've got a plant-based option with plant-based nuggets. They've got pizza, sliders, chicken strips, a chicken and shrimp combo, and mac and cheese and tar pit shrimp. So they've got a really good size menu. It's all $11.49 for all of their entrees, but the quality may or may not be there if you visit. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's some people that just love this place because of its atmosphere. And there's people that are like, the food was inedible and it was awful. So you just roll the dice if that's something you really want the atmosphere for. And maybe it's just like, the food's fine. Like, right, we could eat it.
Yeah. And our friend Kathy B on Discord made a really good option, or a really good point in her, what she had to say about T-Rex. She said, we had friends that loved T-Rex because they said it was nice. It was something nice to do for the boys because we felt like there was an abundance of princess themed restaurants. And this was a nice one that they could take their boys to. So I do think that's a good point, and they're not wrong. There are more princess options than options directly geared towards what we see as the more boy options. So that's another reason why I feel like a lot of people lean towards T-Rex.
Yeah. I mean, it's like rainforest. I feel like this is the debate that's been out there forever. You know, like rainforest cafes. People like, it's such a cool place to eat. And that's why it's still open. Because there's people who like really love it.
Yeah.
But it's also like people are like, it was terrible.
Yeah.
The food was bad. So, you know, I don't know why they can't just have good food in these places. Because they look really cool. Like I was looking at it and there was a whole bunch of fish tanks and stuff that you could fit. Like, it would be fun to sit next to fish tanks. What is it? The coral reef is also like that.
Yes.
Terrible food.
Yes.
So, like,
and it's like they put all this effort into the theming and the atmosphere and all of that. But it like, okay, you also have to put that same amount of effort into your food.
Yeah. Right. It must be because it costs so much to upkeep all of that they like have to like,
I don't know. Like that's cut corners on the food.
Terrible food. I don't know. So weird.
I will mention something else fun about this location is directly connected to, they have like a little gift shop area, but they do have a Build-A-Bear, but it's a Build-A-Dino area that you can do. So I've actually done it before, my husband and I. Listen, okay. No, so we did it. So on the trip that I was pregnant with my son, we went to the Build-A-Dino and built one for him before he was born. And now like that's his, that we built him on his first Disney trip when he was, before he was born. So
that's cute. I love that. Okay. Before we move on to our other honorable mention, wow, I can speak. I just want to mention that Anthony over here, thank you, Anthony. You said some very kind things as a cast member, but they said the boathouse is the best option in Springs, and he and his wife are going in May for their honeymoon. So another vote for the boathouse, which we did say was a pretty great option for families as well as couples. So
yeah, nice. Okay, so wrapping up, our final honorable mention choice for the Disney Springs area is actually not at Disney Springs. It is at Port Orleans Riverside Resort, which is considered a Disney Springs area resort, which is why it's included on this list. This is just a really nice option if you're looking for something a little more further away. It's not in the hustle and bustle of Disney Springs. It's a really good resort option that you could kind of escape to. They have 5 options on their kids menu, and they do dinner only, so they don't have a lunch option at this location. But they have a grilled chicken, grilled fish, pasta with marinara, mac and cheese, and a cheeseburger. But really, really good food over there from what I've heard. And just a really nice kind of escape that you may need during your trip to Disney.
I have walked by this restaurant many times. I have not dined at it, but I will say that I've stayed at Riverside many times, and it is a beautiful place to go in the evenings. Especially, they've got the water wheel when it's operating. It looks really lovely in the water there, and the property itself is just really gorgeous for Riverside. They also have a couple of things that are great for kids. Like if you wanted to make it a little destination, they've got a really great playground for kids that is not that far, just a little bit of a walk to the playground from the restaurant. So you could easily pair it with a little trip to the playground. You know, I feel like they also have the Surrey bikes there. They have a couple of family activities that you could rent things. So if you wanted to make it a little afternoon or evening, you know, with the family, you could do that.
Yeah, and if you're going there from Disney Springs, like if this is still on your Disney Springs day, take the boat, because the boat is a really fun way to get to Port Orleans from Disney Springs. So you can get that boat if you go down past the like Christmas shop area of Disney Springs. You can get the boat on the Sassagoula River and take it there. My kids still talk about that boat ride from when we stayed at Port Orleans French Quarter. So there's 2 Port Orleans resorts if you're not familiar. There's Riverside, which is the one we're talking about where Boat Rights is, but then there's also French Quarter. We've stayed at French Quarter once. We took that boat one time And this last
Nice
trip,
boat
they were
ride.
like begging to take it. So we
Yeah.
ended up on our Disney Springs day. We ended up taking the boat ride, and we ended up eating at the quick service restaurant at Port Orleans French Quarter because they wanted to go on the boat. And
Yeah.
they wanted beignets. So
Yeah, I think, boat rides, from everything that I've seen, looks like a pretty solid option. I've just always done the quick service there, and that's the only reason I haven't eaten there.
right.
But yeah, it is a really lovely area if you get to spend any time in the French. And then you can also go, if you wanted to not have dessert there, you could also go get beignets over in French Quarter. So you can make it a whole little outing with your family.
Yeah. And our friend Matt over here is saying he was at boat rides on his college program, and he agrees it's a hidden gem and a great spot to eat. So
There you go. So it's worth the trip, worth the boat ride.
yes.
2 boat rides.
Yeah. All the boats.
There's a lot of boats in this one.
There's
like
a lot of boats.
paddlefish,
Boat
we have
house.
boat
Yeah.
house, we have boat rides.
I know. And I think
Heavily boat themed.
I don't know. I'm not sure that's it's fine. Anyway, so I think
Oh my goodness.
anyways, I think that wraps up our Florida ADRs for Walt Disney World.
Yes, but we're
And
not done
I
yet.
think we are ready.
Yeah.
Sorry,
done.
Hope said it's almost like there's a lake there.
Or something.
Yep. Yeah. So shall we hop on a plane and head over to Disneyland to start our Disneyland portion of this ADR series?
Yes, let's do it. And I actually did I did this section and I did a lot of research into this one because I do go to Disneyland about every other month usually. But I don't often spend a tremendous amount of time in downtown Disney. It's usually like, on the day you're traveling in or out, or if it's like late night and you want to go out with some friends or whatever. But you wouldn't be doing that with children, so that was not helpful for my research. So I decided, I was like, let's do a little research from the angle of families. And so I ordered these least recommended to the best based on families. So I'm going to start with, I'm also just going to mention there's a couple that are just not on this list, like Napa Rose and things like the ones that are like, you're just probably not going to take kids there anyway. They're just not even, we're just going to skip over them just for interest of time. So let's start with the Palm Breeze Bar. This is in the Disneyland Hotel, but it's an open air bar that has like a mid-century theme. And I thought this one, the food looked pretty good, pretty kind of standard though for kind of like bar food. The kids menu had grilled chicken, cheeseburger, grilled cheese, and of course they have the Disney Power Pack, which usually has, it's like great for toddlers. It's got goldfish, yogurt,
and orange,
milk, and carrots sticks usually.
Yeah, yogurt smoothie, oranges, whole grain fish crackers.
Which is basically goldfish.
Is what this one says. But yeah, there's a couple different options of that you'll see across property.
Yeah. The atmosphere, though, because it's outside, definitely is a good one for kids because they can, if they make noise and stuff, they're not going to bother people as much as maybe some of the other locations. So even though it's like a bar, it's a pretty good one. Would I like travel all the way to the Disneyland Hotel just to go to this place? Like, no, that's not happening. Probably ever. But if you're at the Disneyland Hotel already, it's a solid place to eat with your kids. That being said,
That's fair.
let's move on to our second one this one actually makes me very, 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 very sad. And anybody who's a Disneyland local knows what I'm talking about because this is the Jazz Kitchen. And the Jazz Kitchen used to be like the place that we went to every single time we went. And it was amazing. And the theming was pretty much like New Orleans French Quarter. It was very much, here's what it used to look like. They had the Jazz Kitchen. They had little like statues out front.
Yeah.
And it was very much like Mardi Gras themed, very immersive environment. And then they decided they were going to remodel it and rename it. And now it looks like airport vibes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Boo.
It's very sad. And
They went from
very
like
sterile.
Port Orleans French Quarter to the contemporary. Like,
yeah. Like, I mean, they literally had all of the like wrought iron everything on the outside.
Yeah.
It was beautiful and it was fun. And then they had live jazz music every night, and they had, of course, the beignets and everything. And now, like, they still have live jazz music and they still have beignets, but it's just not the same. And the atmosphere inside is very much the same, where it's just kind of sterile. So whatever they did to it, everybody's like, they ruined this place.
Oh, that stinks.
So they serve Cajun and Creole food there. Do you want to talk about the kids' options a little bit?
Yeah, so they kind of have their kids menu set up in 2 different courses, which is interesting. So the first course they can do, they have like a fresh veggie sunshine and ranch dip for the first course. And then the second course, you can do a choice of mac and cheese, a pulled pork slider, the Jazz Kitchen cheeseburger, or crispy chicken tenders, served with French fries or fresh fruit. So the menu itself is fairly standard. It's not, no real major issues there. It's just the atmosphere kind of is lacking that little pizzazz it used to have.
Yeah, like they used to have these really cute umbrellas hanging from the ceiling with like a tin roof and everything, and it was just so cute. They changed it.
Why, Disney? Why?
I know. And I've also heard some things that are kind of just mixed reviews on the food, because I was like, okay, well, maybe it's just the atmosphere. We can get over that if the food's still really great. Yeah. But then there's like, no, the food used to be really great, and now it's just like, it's what it is. It's like being in an airport.
I've heard that even with just the beignets, because I feel like that's what, when everyone talks about beignets at Disneyland, they talk about those beignets for the most part. I mean, they also, when they talk about the ones that they prefer, but even recently, I feel like I've heard people talking about how the new quote unquote beignets are not as good as the old beignets were here.
Yeah, it's just not the same. So it was a change, not for the better, even though like it's updated. We're like, we didn't want updated, we wanted themed.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and honestly, the prices here for the food, it's kind of on the upper end of some of what we've seen when it comes to like the adult offerings. Now, some of it is because of the quality of like what you're getting as far as like multiple meats on a dish and things like that. But they do have a lot of options on their menu, but the price point is not necessarily something that I would be willing to pay for the food that they have there.
I mean, but you would if it was like the atmosphere was amazing.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. But that's knowing that, knowing that it's not
what it used to be.
I know. But yeah, I mean, they have, they have like lobster and crawfish. They have, bacon burgers. They have, they call it reef and beef, so they have a lot of good options. They've got jambalaya, they've got gumbo, they've got all that kind of stuff. But the prices are,
yeah. So all that being said, Jazz Kitchen used to be great. Now it's not as much. But if you like live jazz music, that's still happening. So you can still go and enjoy some music there. But that's why it's pretty low down on this list for me, is because of that. And I'm sad to put it there. But that is what it is.
It is Shall we move on?
Let's move on. Next up, I have the Grand Californian Hotel Craftsman Bar. So this one is a really interesting one because it is out kind of near the pool.
Mm-hmm.
So some people either kind of love that or hate it. They're just like, if you love sitting by the pool vibes and eating, then this is your place. Yeah. And obviously it's more casual there. I saw a lot of reviews of people being like, I don't want to look at people in their swimsuits while I'm enjoying my meal. And I was like, okay, all right.
Then this is not your place. Pick somewhere else.
Somewhere else to eat.
Well, and they have really like unconventional like seating from what it looked like. Like it's not a lot of like standard tables and things like that. It's more of those like kind of lounge style. Yeah.
Yeah. And they have ones that kind of like bar seating that kind of face out and stuff. So I would say it's like atmosphere is maybe not the best unless you love being by a pool. But that being said, kids menu, it has a very extensive menu. So lots and lots of options. And the kids menu is all $10 a piece. Mm-hmm. They've got hamburger, chicken tenders, grilled cheese. It's just like, I feel like we ordered from this place when last time we stayed there. I know it's changed its name. Mm-hmm. It used to be what, Geyser Grill or something like that. But they said the menu stayed the same even though they changed its name.
Okay.
And so I remember we ordered from it while our kids were swimming. We ordered food. So that's kind of like the vibe you get here. Is, you can hang out by the pool and have a meal.
So very low key. You don't have to worry about disrupting, again, like we've talked about at some of these other locations, if you're worried about your littles being a little crazy in a restaurant, this may be a good option for you.
Yeah. And Lissy makes a good point. I think most of the people who eat there are guests of the hotel. Yes, I would say that the majority of people who eat here are guests. That does not mean, though, you can't make a reservation and eat here and they'll let you in. You won't be able to swim unless you're a guest of the hotel. So just throwing that out there. It's not a ticket into the swimming pool.
Right.
But you can go hang out at the hotel itself, which is really beautiful and a nice place to visit and not that far from Disneyland. So if you'd like to check out the hotel and just kind of see what the vibes are like, if you're thinking about staying there, this might be an option. But I probably wouldn't eat there if I wasn't staying there, which is why it's low on the list.
All fair. All completely fair.
All right. Shall we move on to the next one?
Yes.
This is in the new, what they call Pixar Place Hotel, which used to be Paradise Pier Hotel. This is the Great Maple Modern American Eatery. There's a lot of words.
Such a long name. Why?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know anything about this place because I never go out there. It feels like it's in the South 40, that hotel. Now, that being said, if you are staying at the hotel, they have an entrance to it now that's like on the back side. I feel like it's near Corn Dog Castle, but I'm not sure. I haven't looked for it yet.
Yeah.
Because I haven't stayed here ever. But it's because this hotel is really far away from a walk. So you have to walk. It's a solid 15-minute walk at least to get to this one, which doesn't sound like a lot from Disney World standards, but it isn't Disneyland standards.
Yeah. Well, and is this, because they just remodeled this whole hotel and it just reopened just a few weeks ago, right? So is this a new location or is this a restaurant that was there previously before the renovations?
That's a good question. I know that this opened with the new hotel, but it opened before the new hotel opened. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Like this was included in part of the Pixar Place Hotel renovation.
Okay.
But the Great Maple Modern American Eatery is like a chain from what I hear. So it's not like a Disney specific. It's not heavily themed to Pixar. So if you're looking for like the Pixar restaurant, like this is not going to be it. It has a couple pictures of Pixar.
Right. But that's good to know because the hotel is so themed, like for lack of better, like I don't have good words to describe it, but like there's so much theming in the hotel that going in there could be a little
surprising,
disappointing, and like jarring to be like, wait a minute, hold on, aren't we at Disney?
But that's because it's a third-party restaurant, so they're going to manage it the way they are, and it's not going to be Disney everything. Right. Like if you were expecting it to be like Lamplight Lounge is heavily Pixar themed, everything is Pixar, and the menu is Pixar. That's not what you're going to get here. But what you will get is elevated American comfort food made from scratch with an element of fun. That's how they brand it. And it does get pretty consistently high reviews. People usually like the brunch in particular. I think, though, this is mostly people that are staying on property. So this would be like a great one, like on your travel in or out day to visit if you're staying at the Pixar Place Hotel. I'm not sure I would ever like make the journey out there to go to this one.
Right.
Do you want to talk about the kids menu a little bit?
Yes, and I will say we found some kind of discrepancies when it came to the kids menu because like it was hard to find information on what we had. Like even on the Disneyland website, there's no kids menu listed.
Right.
And like
it took me forever to find it.
And like I even looked at like menu photos on like Yelp and couldn't find a kids menu either. So Kate did find it. But we don't have a ton with pricing other than the fact that it's in that $15 to $35 range that Disney typically uses for. So as far as table services go, that's not on the higher end of table service. So our guess would be it's kind of average pricing. But the kids menu has chicken fingers and fries, a curly mac and cheese, cavatappi pasta with like cheesy pasta that you can add chicken to, a French toast log for brunch, which sounds like something my kids would love. And then for the brunch, they also have like a scrambled eggs with blueberries and that kind of thing as well. So decent options, but not a ton of them. And Kate's got a note here that picky eaters may not enjoy this because there are some complex flavors with some extra spices added into some of the entree dishes.
Yeah, like if you're a little bit more of an adventurous eater, I feel like this place would be right up your alley because it has a lot of different things that they combine together. But if you're like, I like my food what it is and I like it really straightforward, that this one would probably be a challenge for that kind of eater.
Yeah.
It did look good though, I have to say. All the food that I saw, especially the donuts here, looked really amazing. So
maybe brunch options instead would be.
Yeah, I would probably lean towards brunch if I was going to eat here, but I'd only do it if I was staying on property. So if you happen to be staying at the Pixar Place Hotel, this might be a good option. I would probably say for a travel day, I probably wouldn't waste my park time going to this.
Yeah. Well, and it's so far away that it's not an easy walk from if you're inside the parks. You know what I mean? Some of these locations, if they're right in the downtown Disney area, they're fairly close when it comes to you want to pop out and grab dinner or whatever. This is not one of those options. It takes a while, like Kate said, to walk there if you're going to walk or...
Well, you can get out of the park. They made an exit on one side of it's like really new. On California Adventure, there is an exit that you can exit to walk to this park that makes it a little shorter. However, you can't get back in usually unless you have like an ID showing that you're staying at the hotel. You have to have evidence that you're staying at the hotel. That's exactly the same as it is for Grand Californian, the Grand Californian is often you can leave through that exit that is that like guest only entrance to the park. Mm-hmm. You can leave and go into the hotel that way. You can't always get back that way. Sometimes they'll let you through if it's not busy and they don't care.
Right.
But that's not a given. So
right.
Just keep that in mind. You might need to be a guest in order to use those entrances.
Right. And you may or may not want to risk it. And then even still, depending on if you're not staying at that hotel, depending on where your hotel is in relation to it, if you're walking there afterwards. So just logistically not the easiest to navigate.
You know, if you're like on Harbor Boulevard and you have to go all the way to Pixar Place, it's a long way.
Yeah. Yeah. At that point, you're calling an Uber to get us back.
It's a long walk.
Yes.
All right. That being said, let's move on to Trader Sam's Enchanted Tiki Bar, which I could talk for hours about this place because I love it so much. But I won't do all the history and stuff here. We did do a Distory with Kate and Kirk episode. I think we did 1 or 2 episodes on the tiki bars, both in Walt Disney World and here in Disneyland. And we talked all about the little secrets and things you can find in there. So if you do head to the Tiki Bar, make sure you listen or watch those episodes because you'll find a whole bunch of really interesting things and then connect it to Jungle Cruise history.
Yeah.
But that being said, this is a super unique dining experience, but is a very, very small restaurant, like tiny, tiny restaurant.
Yes.
They have a whole outdoor area that I would say is better for kids, but it's a lot less interesting. Because inside is where all the cool stuff happens. They have like when people get certain drinks, like the lights do certain things, or like a ship like sinks in a bottle, or like like there's a whole bunch of really fun stuff that happens. Also, people do like shout and do things. So if the loud noises and lights and stuff scare your kids, this is like not a good option.
And it's fairly dark, isn't it?
It's not that bad. I think
not
it's
too
worse
bad.
in Disney World than Disneyland.
Okay.
Disneyland is pretty light. Okay. Yeah, I could see everything pretty well, so I wouldn't say it's dark. But they do have Sam's No Booze Brews, so they have options for kids that are non-alcoholic. But they don't have an extensive menu, really. They do have a limited kids menu that's like chicken or salmon teriyaki bowl, a cheeseburger, or again, that power pack that we mentioned. And it's like $11 to $13. But I would say, and also after 8 p.m., it's closed to children. So you can't go there with your kids after 8 p.m. because it's adults only at that point. And this is a huge debate about whether or not kids should even be allowed in this restaurant. And anybody who doesn't have kids is like, not everybody, but there's a lot of people who don't have kids that are like, kids should never come here. This is not a kid's spot. They should enjoy it when they get older, and as parents, we're always like, okay.
Well, and I will say it's different. Like the Disney World version doesn't have like a lunch menu and like that kind of thing like you see at Disneyland. So they're very different when you're thinking about kind of the way that they operate. Because I think the one at World opens at like 3:00 in the afternoon. So like it's a totally different vibe there than what you really find at Disneyland. Disneyland has a full lunch menu. So,
Yeah, it is.
they anticipate kids being there to an extent. I wouldn't call it family friendly, but I would say that it's okay to take your kids.
Yeah, I would say if your kids are well behaved and not going to like run around the bar and you're super loud, then it's probably fine. I would do it closer to like lunchtime, because then nobody's gonna like, once it gets towards like happy hour and like evening time.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't take my kids there, just out of respect for everybody else that's in the bar. That's all.
Yeah.
My kids are pretty chill and they wouldn't cause any problems. But
Right.
But it is a really, really cool atmosphere. So I can see why people would want to take their kids there and let them experience it.
Yeah. And their lunch hours are like 11:30 to 4 is like their lunch. And then dinner hours start at 4 o'clock. So decide what you will when you want to go, if you're going to take your kids, and it is hard, because as parents, we want to also experience the fun things that are available for adults. And oftentimes, if we're someone staying on property that is taking transportation that has a designated driver, going to somewhere like that to have a drink or two is something that we might want to do on our vacation.
Right.
So you just got to plan accordingly.
Right. And the Disneyland Hotel, for those of you who are not familiar with Disneyland, if you have park tickets for the day, you can take the monorail from Tomorrowland and it will drop you off fairly close to the Disneyland Hotel. It's pretty much the only place the monorail goes is that stop. It has those two stops. Those are your options. But you have to have a park ticket to use it. But it is, and the monorail has to be running, which is also not something that always happens. The monorail does
That's
not
fair
run sometimes. But it is a really nice option to get down there pretty quickly. If you don't want to walk all the way through downtown Disney, you can take the monorail there. But for that reason, that it's like, it's not always as kid friendly. I think that kids outside, people are good with that.
Yeah.
It's kind of near the pool-ish too. So people already expect that it's going to be somewhat loud out there. So.
Right. But now do any of the effects for the drinks transfer to outside, or are they only inside?
No. Everything's inside.
I didn't know if they piped any of the sound effects, or you know what I mean, any of that kind of stuff out to the,
because it's all like the show, and it really is only inside. So all you get is you get the nice vibes, you get the music that's chill, and you get kind of the tropical, and so you still get like the food's really good and the drinks are great. So you can still do that on the outside, but they have very limited seating inside. It's also very hard to get a reservation here. So that being said. Anyway, that's all I have about Trader Sam's. Shall we move on to Splitsville? Do you want to talk about this one a little bit?
Yes. So here we are again. This is like deja vu. Let's talk about Splitsville. So like we mentioned when we talked about Splitsville for the Disney Springs, Disney World option, Disneyland also has a Splitsville, which is, again, it's an upscale bowling alley that has a restaurant with it as well. It is different than the Florida version, like we talked about with the aesthetics. This gives more of a mid-century modern home vibe, whereas Disney World is different than that. So keep that in mind. But the majority of what you're going to see food-wise, pretty much identical.
Pretty much, yeah. It's really the vibes that are super different. It's got, somebody compared it to like going to somebody's home in Palm Springs. That's kind of how it felt. So it's not like
fair.
Yeah, it's not like Disney World's almost got like 1950s like diner vibes.
Yes.
And this one's more of like cozy home, mid-century modern home vibes.
Yeah. And I will say, we talked about the sushi. They also have an extensive sushi menu at this location as well. Your kids' entree options: cheese pizza, hot dog, chicken tenders, grilled cheese, cheeseburger, chicken tenders. Oh, grilled chicken tenders or crispy. I was like, didn't I already say that? Sorry. And then a pasta option as well. So a little bit different, a little bit the same. They don't have a mac and cheese option on here, though, which is interesting because they did at the Disney World location.
And my son will not want to go there.
Yeah, because that's what my daughter got and loved it. Her mac and cheese was delicious. And it's not on this kids menu, so that's
true. And they updated it fairly recently, Splitsville, because for those of you who don't know, downtown Disney's kind of in the middle of a giant refurbishment right now. Nobody's really done anything to it for a long time, so it was due for an update. But this Splitsville got a little bit of a makeover in that process as well. And I did mention that, or I noted that it's about $15 to $20 per game per person. So if you do want to bowl there, that's how much it costs. And the amount of time you get is based on how many people you're bowling with. So they take into account if you have a really large party, it's going to take you longer to cycle through. So they give you a little bit more time, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, it is kind of fascinating to me at these Splitsville locations how they like have it figured out reservations that also include bowling. You know what I mean? Like it's just so interesting that they've been able to figure out timing for both.
Yeah, it sure is. So this one's pretty high up on the list. This is like my number 2 for families, mainly because there's options for entertainment and there's a lot of good food for kids. And it seems pretty reasonably priced. And it just like it's an all around like solid bet. But the entertainment also of bowling, then gives it a little nudge for families. But
yeah. And the prices for the entrees, I don't think I mentioned, are anywhere from 10 to 14. So again, it's that standard range that we've seen literally everywhere that we've looked so far.
And that is for kids, and specifically it's a little bit more for adults. But everything I saw though was like the food was like just okay. But because it's kind of got this cool retro vibes and it's got the, the bowling alley and stuff, I was like, oh, put it up a little bit higher on the list. This was hard to order. Not going to lie. I was like, I reordered it like 6 times.
Well, and I will say that there are, I believe, last I looked a couple of years ago, there are other like Splitsville locations outside of just the Disney ones. So it is somewhat of a chain. So it's, I hate to say it's like you get what you kind of expect out of a chain restaurant when it comes to food, to an extent. Not every chain is that way, but a lot of the times, it's similar. Not that Splitsville is to the level that like we were talking about with Rainforest Cafe and T-Rex, but like it's that similar thing where you get these larger chain restaurants that they just don't take as much time with their menus.
Yep.
It's a generalization, but I have found it to be true.
Yes, me too. I agree.
Shall we talk about
I was like, what's happening?
Your top choice for Downtown Disney?
Yeah, this was an easy one. This is the Naples Ristorante. So this is the Italian restaurant, but it has wood-fired pizza. They also have an express next to it if you just want to get some wood-fired pizza to go or really quickly. But the kids' menus, everything was $10 across the platform there for kids. They had a cheese pizza, pepperoni pizza, pasta, mac and cheese, like a chicken pasta, and a risotto that's a vegetarian option as well. But every review that I read about this was people were just raving about how amazing it was and how perfect it was for families. And it does look very, very much like a good for families kind of atmosphere in it. Yeah. It's definitely got Italian vibes in it. It's nice looking, but it's not like stuffy in any way.
Right.
And then I've had the pizza for this in the express counter, and it was really good. I really enjoyed it. Very fresh ingredients. And just like wood-fired pizza, you get most places that have wood-fired pizza. Like we talked about in Epcot, they have their they have Via Napoli and whatnot. They've got that. It's very, very similar to that. So,
and we did mention when we talked about that sometimes it may be a cheaper option to just buy several large pizzas for your table rather than doing like an individual kids meal and individual entrees for people. So places like this are good that they have several options when it comes to that. If you know that your kiddos are going to be good eating regular pizza, or something that you want to split with one of them, that may be a better budgetary option when it comes to places like this.
Yeah, and I will say that I don't think there's ever been a time when I've been at Downtown Disney where there wasn't a massive like line of people trying to get into this place. Like, it's really popular for good reason.
Yeah. And so on their like main menu when it comes to pizza, they really only got 2 size options. They've got a 10-inch and they've got a 20-inch. So keep that in mind as you're looking to order. And it's interesting because like the menu on the Disneyland website is not super helpful. Like the kids menu is not even on there.
That's interesting.
Which is crazy. And there's no prices on there at all. So
I think most people go there to share pizza, quite honestly. I think that's the thing that families look for. But of course, there's always going to be some kids that maybe don't like pizza or, pickier eaters that don't like sauce or cheese or whatever. So.
Right. And they've got a lot of really good Italian options if you don't like pizza, which there are kids out there that don't. Not probably very many, but there's a few here.
It's usually like toppings they don't like, right? Like they're picky about like, I don't like pepperoni. I don't like pineapple. It's like.
Right. And you do have some of their pizzas that they have they've got Hawaiian pizza, they've got, mushroom garlic pizza, so you just got to kind of decide what looks good. But they also have pepperoni and margarita pizza and all that kind of stuff too. So
yeah, that's true. So that would be my number one recommendation for downtown Disney, for Disneyland, for families, is the Naples Ristorante. I think it's a really solid option for families, and it's also got really wonderful vibes at night too. So if you've had a long day in the parks and you want to just like chill out in the evenings, this is a great place to go.
Yeah.
That being said, there are some new places that are coming to downtown Disney, and they're coming sometime in 2024. They haven't announced
they're coming sometime
soon. There's a whole bunch of quick service ones that are opening as well. But they have a replacement for the Catal Uva bar, which is like, if you know downtown Disney, it's kind of like the one that's in the center of the walkway and it's been there forever. Like I can't even remember when they put it in, but they're changing that up. They're making 2 restaurants. There's Paseo, and then there's Centrico. I'm going to say that wrong. I'm sorry if I just did. I just butchered that. But there's it's all kind of Mexican cuisine is what it is. So not probably a place I would recommend for kids. Usually this place has always been adult vibes. It has a Michelin starred chef, Carlos Gaten. I don't know if I can pronounce it out, but I'm the one struggling with pronunciation.
I know. I'm like, it's not me this time.
So I would probably say those are probably not going to be on my family friendly list, but it'll be interesting to see what kind of cuisine they come up with.
Right.
Other ones is, let's see if I can pronounce this, Din Tai Fung, I'm guessing is how you pronounce that, which is a world-renowned Chinese restaurant from Taiwan and specializes in soup, dumplings, and noodles. And our friend Magic Beds and Trash Cans, Lem, is saying he's very excited about this one and jealous that they're getting that one.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole structure that's called Parkside that they're building that has 4 restaurants in it. One is called Soul Sister. I can't say it. It's a Korean fusion restaurant. It's the Soul Sister. And then Sip and Sonder, which is an LA cafe featuring treats and signature lattes and Caribbean-inspired bites. So that'll be an interesting one. And then Gigi's Chicken Shop, which is a family eatery from James Beard's award-winning creators, featuring a menu of comfort food like chicken sandwiches, salads, and classic sides. My guess is that's probably going to be a quick service, but I don't know for sure.
Sounds like it, but it's so hard to tell.
I know. And then the Alfresco Bar, which is a double-decker bar, which will pour drinks crafted by expert mixologists. So there'll be a bar as well, which is probably not going to be a family-friendly place to hang out.
Yeah, but that's not the type of bar that we would suggest with.
Yeah. So I don't think that they've announced any opening dates for this except for 2024. They've been working on them slowly. We've been watching them transform everything. And they're also closing Tortilla Joe's, which if anybody's familiar with that, they also had an Express, which I always went to. And I'm really sad that it's closing because I liked the burritos there. But Tortilla Joe's is closing, I think at the end of March is when it's done. Don't quote me on that because I can't remember, but it's closing soon. And I don't know what they're replacing that with yet. I haven't figured out exactly where they're putting all of these things yet. I just know that that's going away. So
yeah, and we don't have menus for a lot of them, so that's kind of all up in the air until we get more information about that.
Yeah. So basically just keep an eye on downtown Disney and Disneyland if you're planning a trip there, and see what the restaurants look like when they get closer to opening, and they'll announce their menus and their dates and all those kinds of things. And you can decide if that's somewhere you want to check out.
There you go. All right. Well, I think that wraps up our downtown Disney list.
Yeah,
with a few things to come when it comes to that. So, this was truly so interesting to take a look at some of these restaurants that we don't typically look at. I had some people over here on my side of the live chat talking about like this is helpful. Like I'm taking a trip and I want to know some places to try. So
I feel like we've learned a lot about these restaurants that as we've gone here, because I feel like there's so many that I've either only heard really old news about and haven't heard like updates or things that I've never even considered going to that I'm like, oh, maybe I should try that.
Right. And most of it's like, oh, I've heard that name before of that restaurant.
Yeah,
that's all I got.
That.
Like, oh yeah, someone talked about that, or so-and-so's been there, but like, that's all I got. So yeah, it's really interesting to take a look and have some more details about, especially kid-friendly menus with some of these.
Yeah, for sure. Especially, because most people will look at the adult menu, but not often look at what's available for kids. I think they get a little bit forgotten when people do food reviews of like, that's great, but like, are my kids going to be happy eating there? It's really important for parents, for guardians, for people traveling with children. It's like, if your kid doesn't have anything they want to eat there, it makes it really difficult to enjoy your meal.
Yeah. And some restaurants are always going to be more equipped to do, make alterations to dishes and allergies and all that. We didn't even get into anything allergy related with any of these places. The majority of them are going to be fine when it comes to that. But I will mention that a lot of these are third party. So what the level of detail to allergies that you see in a lot of Disney owned food establishments may not always transfer to some of these third party establishments. It may, but it may not.
Yep. Then I feel like I was reading a review about the Boathouse, and somebody was saying that one was very much like gluten friendly, gluten-free friendly. So I would say there's a few of these that are like a little bit more than others for certain dietary restrictions, but we just didn't have time to get into all those details here. But hopefully out of all of these that we have suggested, you can maybe dig through if you have specific needs and go and see what other people have said about it. Because there's lots of information there about that.
So true. So true. Well, are we ready to move on to our final segment?
I think so. Shall we?
Okay. Yes. So every podcast episode, we end with our Ask the Mom segment, where we take questions from our Mom Street community, whether it be via Discord or social media message or email, and we do our very best to answer it. So tonight's question is, what is the best method of transportation, talking bus, monorail, boat, Skyliner, etc., to take with young kids and strollers at Walt Disney World?
Not the bus. Anything but the bus. No.
Yeah, the bus is the most challenging.
It is. You can take them.
Yes. But I would also say that there are aspects of every one of these modes of transportation that can be difficult with strollers, depending on the type of stroller you have and the size of the stroller you're traveling with.
Yeah. And like, I would say the Skyliner is probably the one I suggest the most, because I love the Skyliner and my kids love the Skyliner. They think it's fun. Even my kid, who's really scared of heights, still really loves the Skyliner. And I think it's the double strollers you have to fold up on that one.
If they are side by side,
right,
double strollers, they cannot fit.
Right.
But if they are front to back, you can keep them open and wheel them in, because that's what we do with we have like a sit and stand stroller. So the front is like a standard stroller and the back is just like the bench seat, and we can roll it right onto the Skyliner.
Yeah, that's what we had, was an inline stroller when we used strollers back then.
Yes. So double strollers, no matter what, you're gonna, unless it's the monorail, any other mode of transportation, you're gonna need to fold them up when it comes to that. The side-by-side double strollers. If they're all inline strollers, then you get one more with the Skyliner.
Yeah.
But you're still gonna have to fold them up on the bus. You're still gonna, most boats except for the big ferry at Magic Kingdom.
Yeah. I think the ferries you can roll on. There's lots of space there.
Yes. But like the smaller boats, like the friendship boats, or like we were talking about the boat between Disney Springs and like Port Orleans, you have to fold them up on those ones.
There's just no space for strollers otherwise. Yeah. So, yeah, I would say, it depends. But probably monorail is probably the most stroller friendly out of all of them, because you can still do the side-by-side ones and still roll that on.
Yes.
But I would say Skyliner is like second, gets a second. honorable mention.
Yeah. And the boats are not far behind because the majority of them and the thing about the boats is even if you have to fold the strollers, it's a lot less of a pressured environment than the bus.
Yes. Oh, that's
Do you know
so
what I mean?
true.
Because with the buses, they're trying to cram as many people on as they can. You have to like hurry up and like get your kid out, get your stuff out.
Like, hold it against you as everybody tries to get by you. It's very stressful.
Yes. Whereas the boats, I don't feel like are nearly as stressful when it comes to having to load and get it folded and all that kind of stuff. And some of the boats will even, if there's no, if you don't have any wheelchairs that are on your particular boat, we had one that let us keep our stroller open and we parked it in the wheelchair area.
Well, that's nice.
Which was nice. So we you know, depending on the situation, you may or may not have that option.
Expected, but maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, that's exactly right. He said, I could fold the stroller 1,000 times without any issue until I got to the front of the bus line. And that is so true.
Yeah, it's like something about the pressure of having to fold it with everybody watching you. It's like when you get on the airplane and you have to put your bag up in the thing and I feel like it doesn't fit and you're like, everybody's staring at you, waiting for you to sit down. You're like, oh my gosh, get the thing up there. Yeah.
Yes.
Good times.
So buses are not great. Moral of the story. Monorail gets a thumbs up, Skyliner gets a thumbs up. The boat is pretty decent as well. So
yeah.
Well, thank you for those of you who have submitted questions for our Ask the Mom segment. We always love hearing from you guys and doing our best to answer your questions. If you've got a question for a future Ask the Mom segment that you want to send our way, please do. You can find us on Discord. We've talked a little bit about Discord this episode, but that is the Pocket Fam Walrus Carp Discord that our good friend Kirk runs. The link to that is in our Mr. Lincoln bio. You can email us. You can send us messages on social media. We will do our best to include those in future episodes. So thank you to those of you who have done that so far.
Yeah, we really just loved this series. We're still in this series, though. We haven't given up yet. Next week, we are going to head to Disneyland and California Adventure, which is my stomping grounds, and get to really dig into the best ADRs. And I get asked these questions all the time about these restaurants there. And there's a lot of good food in Disneyland and California Adventure. So deciding where to eat there,
it's going to be tricky. Yeah, it's going to be hard to narrow down this list. We'll see. We may, you know, we tried to keep it to 5 and then we gave
it.
Up
didn't
very
happen.
shortly.
It never happens. It's fine. It's fine.
No, we only really kept it to 5. What Hollywood Studios was 5 because there were only 5.
There was only 5
that were good for.
And couldn't invent a new restaurant, so there was only 5.
As much as we wanted to, but I mean, literally from the beginning, it was more than 5. So you know, we're doing our best, but we also want to give you guys all these good options because there are so many different options that you can have. You know, you get your standard American fare options, you have some more Italian options, you get, you know, the more kind of Chinese or Korean style options, you know, and people have different palates, so it's hard to give as many options for everyone to find something.
Yes, for sure. So that's where we're headed next week is Disneyland and California Adventure, but I think that pretty much wraps up this episode.
Yeah, I'm good on my end.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us for this episode of Mom Street USA. We look forward to chatting more about our ADRs at Disneyland and California Adventure on our next episode. But until then, we hope you have fun planning your more magical Disney vacations for your family and have a little bit less stress in doing so.
Yes, that's the goal here at Mom Street USA. So thanks for hanging out. Thanks for contributing, those of you who were here with us live on TikTok. And we will see you all next week.
See you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.